What's up guys, 2-Bit Jesus here, back with another video. I'm actually a little behind this week. I actually had a couple of videos that were supposed to come out at the end of last week, and I just never got around to editing them, and I thought, why not go ahead and the video for this week just be me kind of catching up with some news from last week, and talking about some news from this week, and maybe also just kind of shooting the shit with what's on my mind. So to get to what I've been up to, actually the main thing that kept me from doing more 2-Bit Talks last week was I actually worked on 2 new reviews. Now RoboCop has already come out. Please go check that video out. It is the right there at the front page of my YouTube channel. And maybe I might put a link to that video in the description below. But I worked on 2 more reviews that'll be coming out in the next couple of months, and my goal this year, I decided when I was working on the RoboCop review that I wanted to go ahead and do a review every month. And I have actually most of the games, all the footage recorded for pretty much all the games I'm going to review this year. So I've already played all those games. I played them like, I would say probably the end of the summer, beginning of the fall last year. So I just need to kind of sit down, review my notes, and write out scripts for them. I wanted to touch upon, there's 2 Nintendo-related news items. Essentially, the head of Nintendo, President Guy, in an interview was quoted as saying like that Nintendo doesn't need hardware, or that you know, the Switch is selling really well, but they're not just looking at hardware, they're looking at, you know, expanding in other areas. Essentially, the dude was just doing corporate speak, you know. This guy is not, I think the problem is when this guy speaks, and forgive me, I can't remember his name, but when he speaks, people think it's like Mr. Iwata was. Mr. Iwata was a developer. He had worked his way up in the company, and so he had a lot of fingers, like he actually was in there, you know, helping with this stuff and going, oh, maybe we should do this or do that. Like he had a deep knowledge of software and hardware and all that. This guy strikes me, now correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe in this interview he even admitted that he's not a developer. He leaves that to the developers. So when this guy speaks, he's just kind of giving you the basic business. It's like he's a businessman, so he's going to say the right things to let everyone who has a share in that company at ease. You know, it's for the shareholders pretty much, and it's just kind of like, oh yes, here's all the corporate speak that makes you go, oh yeah, I'm glad I invested in Nintendo, let's invest more. And so when we read this, we think, oh, Nintendo's abandoning hardware, because look, that's what their CEO is pretty much saying, that, you know, the Nintendo is not necessarily looking at continuing hardware. They're getting into mobile and wanting to do movies and all that. And while, yeah, they're doing those things, hardware's a big thing too. And he, again, in this interview said that he doesn't know much about developing. He strikes me as the type of guy, they put him in there just, you know, so they had to make the shareholders and whatnot comfortable, like, oh, okay, they put a responsible, fiscally responsible guy, he's running the company now that, you know, Mr. Iwata has passed. You know, he was like the safe pick, if you will, and so he's just gonna go steady as she goes, and he's not gonna really try to rock the boat or do anything too crazy. But he also said in this interview he leaves it to the developers, so I think people like Shigeru Miyamoto and a lot of the other people, the guy who designed the Switch, again, sorry I can't remember his name, those people I think are the ones who are actually making the decisions, like where they're going. And this guy's just kind of, you know, looking at it, and maybe he goes, oh, well, this will cost too much money or something like that, but he's deferring to them and their knowledge when he makes his decisions. So I think we can stop freaking out, and you know, the Switch is doing really well, which we get into the other news article. The Nintendo Switch has officially become the fastest selling video game system this generation. It is outselling the PS4's benchmarks, and of course it's outselling the Xbox's benchmarks. So, from March 2017 to November, the Switch sold more than 8.7 million units. And that's before the holidays really kicked in and you got all these other games like Smash Brothers, for instance, which came out. It sold over 3 million copies in just 11 days. So the Switch is very successful. They're going to continue to make hardware. They're probably going to come out with a slimmer, design of it this year. Or maybe, because there's two rumors going around with the Switch. Either we're getting a much slimmer version, one that probably doesn't go in the dock, it's more of a portable one, or just more of a mini version of the Switch. Or we're getting what they're calling the Switch Pro, which would be a system with slightly beefier hardware. The mistake people make is Nintendo has never been about raw power. People always point to the Super Nintendo as proof that, oh look, they did create the most powerful home console at one time. No, that's because the Genesis came out in 1989 and the Super Nintendo came out in, 1991? So the only reason was because Nintendo decided to make their next-gen console later. It wasn't that they were shooting for, this is going to be the most powerful console ever. It just so happened that they had some time in development compared to the Sega Genesis, which was in '89. So, that being said, Nintendo's never been about power, so even if there's a quote-unquote Switch Pro, you're going to see, I think, a slightly beefier system, yes, but it's not going to be like a huge leap above the original Switch, because I think they're going to want to keep it together. They're not going to want to have games that only run on the Switch Pro, not at this stage anyway. Maybe 2 more years down the road, I could see that. Maybe 2-3 more years down the road, I could see Nintendo saying, oh, well, this system, you're going to have to buy this system if you want to play these new games. But as it stands right now, if they come out with a Switch Pro, it's only going to be, I think, a little bit more power under its hood, but nothing like huge. So yeah, with that little news tidbit there, they are definitely going to make more. There are plans for more. Like I said, end of this year, we don't know. We might be getting a slimmed down version of the Switch, or a Switch Pro, which is going to have slightly beefier hardware and probably a better LCD screen. We'll see, but this is the main thing I wanted to talk about. I just think people, especially video game publications, sometimes feed off of sensationalism with the whole Nintendo said they might get out of hardware. No, it ain't gonna happen, at least for the next, I would say, 5 to 7 years. Now, we get a decade or so down the road, if the next Nintendo console doesn't do well and they don't see any more money in it, then yeah, they'll get out of the hardware market. But as far as I can see right now, they're making money, and there's money to be made in hardware. Hell, I mean, PlayStation hasn't hit it yet, but PlayStation is well on its way. The PS4, I mean, is well on its way to hitting over 100 million units. So I think that a lot of people keep looking at mobile games and other stuff like that, and they've been beating this consoles are coming to an end drum for years now. And while I think traditional consoles as they used to be, yeah, that's coming to an end. But consoles, I don't see coming to an end. Anyway, guys, that's it for me today. Please hit that like button, please hit that share button, and most importantly, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and ding the bell. That way you get notified on every video we post. That's it for me today, guys. I will see you soon in the next video. Stay safe and play on.